All right, everybody, welcome to the Back It Up Player Series, getting fired up with the MLL and PLL seasons on the horizon. So we wanted to hop into the minds of the best players in the world and see the game through their eyes. As always, joined by my friend and pal, Mikey Filippo of the Boston University Terriers, with a very special guest today, Kris. Kris, how do you pronounce your last name? Is it Alleyne?
Oh, Alleyne, yeah, you got it first time.
Yeah,
Not many people get it right the first time, so.
Let's go.
John, you're
honestly,
soft, man. You should have just said it. You're soft.
I'll be honest, I have a thing at camps. When I do roll call, I try to get 100% pronunciation. So luckily, even though I'm not recruiting, I'm still 100%.
Love it.
All right,
Yeah,
Kris,
tell yourself that.
Yeah, Mikey, let's go. Let's get into it. How you doing?
Oh, yeah, we're in the how you doing. See, this is weird without Corey, so he's not here, folks. So, Kris, how do you say how you doing?
How you doing? I'm from Rockland County, lived in
Sick.
Brooklyn until I was 7, so I'll tag that as much as I can. So I got it. Don't worry.
That's good. Let's tag that. I love it. Yes. It's been a while since we've done this, so I'm glad we circled back to the right man to keep us rolling.
And by the way, Kris, you got Mike Juice. You see, he was like rocking back and forth. That was like him in the tunnel pregame with that type of affirmation right there. That was electric.
Body bounce. Let's go.
Body bounce. Awesome. Well, Kris, where are you at right now? I know you guys are starting your season soon, and let's get into it. Where are you hanging out?
Yeah, so I've been down in Maryland training for the majority of quarantine and working out with some buddies down here. Started up training camp. First practice was last night, so we're at the hotel in Annapolis right now, and just kind of living out the quarantine dream in a hotel. So it's definitely fun.
Nice. I actually saw some stuff on social. Looks like you guys practice. Are you every game's at Navy?
Yeah, every game is at the stadium, so it's a pretty cool spot to be. It's definitely a lot of history in those walls.
Sick spot.
Sure.
That's a great stadium.
Yep.
We opened there this year. What an experience. It was so cool. We practiced there the day before. I think our guys were like, wow, like this is crazy here. So when I saw that I saw those clips, I was like, that's pretty sick for those guys that you get to play every game there. It's a cool spot.
Yeah, it's no Gaelic Park, but it's definitely cool.
Well, I mean, nothing's Gaelic Park. Who are we kidding?
Oh man, wow, Kris, good. You're coming in hot. I love it.
Yep.
This is great.
All right, so we'll kind of transition here. I want to give you the floor. Give us a little bit about your lacrosse journey and playing and into coaching and what you're doing now, and start from the beginning and give the people what they want. Let's hear it.
Yeah, so started playing organized in about 4th grade, but I was playing in about 1st grade. My older brother, Ryan, played at Plattsburgh State for a little bit. I was a defenseman, and he got into it when our family moved from Brooklyn to Rockland County. My mom moved me and my brother up to the new city. So he started getting into it after catching a Brown versus Hofstra game years and years ago on SNY on the AstroTurf at Hofstra. And he kind of got into it. He had a hockey background and played roller hockey and tried to get into ice hockey, but a little too pricey. So he was always into the sport and just kind of got me going. So it ended up, me being the dumb little brother, always trying to tag along with him and his friends. And we didn't have the cage in the backyard yet, so it was tennis balls on the squares of the garage. And eventually I could catch enough balls using the original edge because that was the widest head we had. So when it came to getting signed up and playing for the Clarkstown Patriots as a 8 or 9-year-old, wanted to play attack, wanted to be a goal scorer, and they needed a goalie, and I kind of just said I'll try it, and kind of got stuck, and the rest is history. So got to thank the Clarkstown Patriots for putting me where I guess I belonged.
I feel like that's where a lot of
awesome.
goalie stories start. They start in the backyard with the siblings just firing balls. And I feel like the goalie very rarely is the oldest sibling. It's always the oldest sibling is the offensive guy. And then the younger siblings, either a goalie or a defenseman that had to either save the shots or guard him in the backyard.
Yeah,
100%.
And he's 10 years older than me. So it was, he made sure he took some off of those shots. But after a while, you could tell if I stopped one as a 9-year-old, he's getting a little frustrated, so he's making sure he's teeing off on me to know that he's the alpha in the situation.
I also feel like the goalie transition always starts with wanting to be an attackman too, to be honest. And then it ends with you're an attackman after, obviously you're a pro, you're not washed up, but Coach Silbs, shout out. All he does is play attack now. That's it. Any chance he has to play, he's out there sniping.
No,
Interesting.
I definitely men's league or summer tournament. Whenever I get a chance to play in those, I'm playing that Kris attack. So scored a couple man up goals in men's league a couple summers ago, and I let my buddies know that I need them to bring an extra pair of arm pads because I'm not going to buy any, but I'm going to need them.
Both ends, baby. Love it.
Well, I like that you gravitate towards Kris attack because you're comfortable in the crease. So you don't want to do too much moving. And you got to just – guys, I will cover the area right in front of the crease that I normally stand in.
I'm the fastest player for 10 yards.
Wait, we might as well pull the clip up now, John, because our guy can move. I mean, do we pull up the
No, we'll get to it. We're going to have to really – we got to really sink our teeth into it. I don't want to rush anything here, Mike. You can't rush perfection.
Looks like you have to watch people.
So the Clarkstown Patriots got you going, and then obviously you took your talents to Rutgers. Tell us a little bit about that experience.
Yeah, so playing at Clarkstown South, we've had a lot of players that have come through and gone through to the Division I level, but it was a little bit of a gap between the last guy to go Division I. So that was a goal of mine early, and my recruiting process was definitely, went all over the place a little bit, where there were points where I had no idea where I was going to end up, and some of the schools that I thought I might be able to get a chance to play at, I didn't hear from, and it was kind of tough. And then you teased it before with the speed. I actually scored a goal at Nike Blue Chip going into my senior year, and that's when it kind of the floodgates opened up a little bit. And Coach Brecht, I had an opportunity to go down to campus and meet with, and that was definitely the best opportunity for me. And just to get a great education and play at such a high level, and going from the Big East to the Big Ten while I was there was awesome, just because you got to see both sides of the spectrum there, and actually played in the first Big Ten game ever against Hopkins. So I loved my time there. And it's funny because being from where I was in Rockland, being that close to Jersey, we kept Jersey there, didn't really want to go, and then my mom's like, you're gonna go visit, and she kind of bullied me into it. And I thank her for being the voice of reason there, because I loved it there.
We like to bust our guys' chops because we have a couple Rockland guys and obviously a couple Jersey guys, and I like to say I avoid Jersey because there are no left-hand turns allowed. That just weirds me out. No left-hand turns, and I can't pump my own gas. I like to be in control of my own destiny. So
in the dead of winter, it's that I'll let them pump the gas.
It's a Zoolander movie, man.
Yeah,
that's all it is. It's a Zoolander movie. I mean, guy can't turn right, Jersey can't turn left, and
sure. So Kris, obviously you wrapped up at Rutgers. Let's get into the coaching side of it. How'd you get into this, being a young blood in the coaching realm? By the way, Coach Filippo, huge fan of the young bloods in the game. But us being
all day
older up and comers, we're big fans of the younger up and comers.
No, absolutely. So I did the whole typical lacrosse thing. I got my degree and thought sales was going to be the next step for me. So I actually worked at a tech startup for a year out of college, and the hiring manager was actually a Rutgers alum, and we wore the same number, so that made that interview a little bit easier.
Sick.
But yeah, so I worked at a tech company for a little bit and just wasn't really feeling it. And lucked out that I was able to get an interview at a News Corp organization and worked in marketing over there for another 13 months. And it was getting to that point where some of the goalies that I had coached would send me their highlight tapes or, ask me a question about a workout they had done. And I'm realizing I'm using company time to coach my guys. And I'm like, what? Why am I doing this? So, after some conversations with my mom and my brother and, the rest of my family, I had mentioned that I wanted to get into coaching, and obviously I got the stability. You have a stable paying job, and I like to think that if you work hard in anything, you're going to get a chance to find that stability. So I ended up quitting my job in the city and didn't really have a plan yet, and did some traveling. Went out to Colorado for 2 weeks, and then California for a little bit to see my brother and some buddies. And during that time, or a little bit prior, I had gotten reached out to by one of the guys who started Clarkstown Patriots, Jeff Ramos, and his son's in Albany. And he had mentioned that he was, going to be the coach for the Puerto Rican national team, and heard through the grapevine that I was looking to quit the real world and get into coaching, and thought it'd be a good opportunity for me to learn. So I ended up, coaching the Puerto Rican Nationals over in Netanya, Israel, and working with him and Andy Whitley, who's the head coach of Bellarmine. Just getting a chance to, pick their brains and running in the sub box for the first time. And as a goalie, you don't realize how chaotic it is because you don't really spend that much time up there. You're usually at the end of the bench with the goalie gang, kind of hanging out, and kind of learn very quickly how chaotic the box can get. So it was fun, and I think that kind of bred me for that next step of when I ended up getting the job at Canisius. And on top of that, Coach Miyashita, he was in Canada or coaching Team Canada, so he was over there as well. So my final interview was actually in my hotel in Israel. So kind of went full circle in the interview process. But I've been really happy with my 2 or 1.5 this year's coaching. So it's been awesome.
Yeah, we were supposed to come visit you guys up in Buffalo 2 days before the season got canceled. Coach Marks told me he had lined up an all-you-can-eat wings meal for our team, so that we'd all be sidelined with stomach issues the next day.
Oh, yeah, we would just – it wouldn't be that we would do anything to taint them. You would just eat so much that you would end up in that situation.
Yeah, guys wouldn't be used to the wings being that good. So Coach Marks was like – he was fighting wing warfare before the game even started. But that's awesome. I actually want to talk a little bit about coaching the national team, the Puerto Rican national team. That's like a personal goal of mine in my career, is to hop on one of those staffs. So I think that's so cool that you guys got to do that, especially in a place like Israel, so far away. And, who knows if you would have been able to make that trip otherwise in your life, or would have made time to do it, which I think is such an unbelievable experience that our sport kind of gave you a vehicle to go do that. And obviously a gateway to get into college coaching, which is pretty sick. So what was that experience like? I mean, you kind of dove into the box. I feel like, by the way, the box is the most underrated part of our coaching. Like, people think that it just runs itself, and it's a job where if you do it right, you don't hear from anybody, but if you do it wrong, everybody hates you.
It's like an NFL kicker. Yeah.
100%. No doubt.
Yeah.
No, it's a full contact sport. I actually we had a situation this past year where one of our guys were running out of the box. He's an attackman, shifty little guy. He getting a little antsy to get onto the field and would have had too many men. So I kind of had to grab him and ended up getting spiked in the leg. So bleeding through the khakis a little bit. So it gets chaotic in there. You don't get the credit deserved, but
you gotta get the job done.
Exactly. Whatever you got to do. The offsides penalties are, you got to just keep them limited. It's like turnovers. You just got to keep them limited. It was a really cool experience because ironically enough, we had, don't want to misquote the exact number, but I would say at least 8 to 9 Section 1 guys, so that I knew, growing up or had, coached or played against, with Will Ramos, who I mentioned before, Nick Vasquez, who's at Hartford, JT Giles Harris, who, is an IAC kid but went to St. Joe's. We had so many guys from the area. So that immediately kind of built that cohesion of the team because, it's kind of like we were, John and I were talking the other day with kind of building that culture. It's kind of tough with, with those international teams or pro teams because you're not spending every day together like a college roster. So, having those relationships that we already kind of knew each other definitely helped a little bit. And then when it came to the older guys where we had Matt Martinez, who played at Cornell, and then Ricky Pages, who, OSU and then played in the MLL for many years and actually played some indoor, having them as our captains, they were able to kind of rein it in and have everyone on the same page pretty early. So it was the term family gets thrown around a lot, but we have our group chat that's still blowing up, to this day. So it was a great group of guys. And then, the travel, it was obviously a long flight getting over to Israel, but we were able to have so many good experiences with, trying the food and getting a chance to get to know each other. And our hotel was right on the beach. So that first day, the second we dropped our bags off, we were getting onto the beach and all hanging out and kind of, tossing the ball around and just having fun. So it was a really cool experience. And I think the thing I appreciated most and I realize now is you don't realize how fast the game has grown and how much it kind of expands that you wouldn't even think about. And there was kind of like the vendor village where, people were selling gear and, meals were there after games at the Wingate facility. And I had an Argentinian kid come up to me and said he'd watched one of my games in college. And that was when it kind of hit me where it's like, really? Like, that's crazy. But he knew who I was. And that was the first time I've ever been recognized by face for being a lacrosse player. So So that was really cool. And it's one of those things where you got a chance to see Uganda get a win over there, and they were going nuts and doing their, their ceremonial dance after the game. And it's an emotional experience at times because you're seeing the game bring so many different people together.
That's really cool.
Yeah, it's awesome. It's a great way to get everybody together and very rewarding, I'm sure.
Absolutely.
I felt like that summer, like a bunch of coaches were not on the recruiting trail for a couple of weeks, and then everybody came back and they were telling stories about being in Israel, and I was like, I want to do that. That sounds awesome. Like, that sounds great. Cool. Well, we're going to pivot into a little bit of your goalie stuff here, a couple drills you sent over, and then we'll supplement with some game film. This one really special clip that we're going to have to really get into. We'll grind the film on.
Yeah, perfect. So right here, I think this is one of the most, basic drills that I like to do, but it's really important because, if you didn't play the position and coaching it, it's tough. And there's, I'm not trying to say I'm an expert because I play it. If you can go back a little bit. So one of the most common things I see from the youth level to even college, if you stop here, is that speed turn. So the emphasis I'm trying to place here and with our guys at school and any guy I'm going to work with is the importance of keeping our chest squared the entire time. So right here, anytime that feed's coming, I teach guys to try and open up to the ball, whatever shoulder the ball goes over, to open up with that shoulder. So right here, it's just, rapid fire reps of just getting turned and squared up and then reacting the second you see the ball come out. And you try to limit your motion as much as you can because a lot of times it's tough to stay in that stance when you make that turn. And a lot of guys end up standing up. And once you stand up, especially in tight, you're kind of finished. So I like to rep this one out because it's definitely a burner. I try to go for about 40 seconds, and the shooters definitely feel it a little bit too. But, just to get as many reps in as possible. So I'm a big fan of this one just because, especially at the pro level, guys are throwing the ball all over the place, and you got to be able to react as quickly as possible.
I got to work with goalies for the first time in a few years, and being the shooter is not an easy job. You got to keep yourself entertained sometimes too.
Absolutely. The first, I like to say to our guys, the first 5 are for them, and then the next 10 are for me. So I definitely agree.
All right, let's get into the next one here. It looks like we're going a little pipe to pipage.
Yeah, so it's kind of the same thing here where the emphasis needs to be placed on keeping your chest squared. So with this, I like to train our guys because I'm clearly not the tallest, 5'10" on a good day. So I like to really teach that inside step. So if you go back a little bit and try to freeze it, my first step with that left foot, you'll always see me going, not necessarily behind the goal line, but at least my heel should be touching the line. Because if you look, when I'm starting to get across, I like to say, not all attackmen, but most attackmen are dumb, especially when a goalie's coming pipe to pipe there, and they see the white of the net and they're just trying to put it short side because they think you're not there. So if you're able to open up with your chest, if you're flying across and your hands are doing their job and punching all the way across, you're going to be able to steal a couple. And I'm not expecting guys to make 80% of the saves in tight. That'd just be unrealistic. But if you can steal 1 or 2 of those a game, that's a huge difference. So being able to drop step and get that chest squared to the shooter, get beat there, but it is so important just being able to keep your chest squared the entire time.
And I'll tell you, this is a little bit of a tangent, but whatever you were doing with your goalie this year at Canisius, it was working. I mean, he went from early on, he was struggling, and then he was a freshman, right?
Yeah, freshman, yep.
Yeah, he's also, 6'5", like 230?
He's like 6'6", 215, 220. He's trying to put some weight on right now. So.
All right. Well, 6'6", 230 next year when we play.
Yeah.
But he was a guy that we were very concerned about going into our game because of his size. But I felt like early in the year he was a shot blocker, and then you were getting him to a point where he was actually saving the shots, like with his stick, with a point, with his eyes behind it, rather than just being a big body and kind of hopeful in there early in the year. So whatever you were doing with him was great.
No, I appreciate that. And it's funny, with Krebs you guys having him, he was a guy where I was breaking down a decent amount of his film last year, obviously. And it was him and DeLuca where I was like, hey, Otto, you're a big kid. These are big kids. Let's watch what they're doing and kind of try to mold our game a little bit in terms of movements. And then the rest, he's got a hockey background. So I tried to equate it as much to that because that's his kind of natural brain capacity. So I tried to kind of put those into perspective for him in terms, because he was a defenseman and his sister's actually an all-world goalie herself.
Wow.
She's a stud. So I was kind of, in terms of athleticism wise, you're playing D, you're backpedaling, you're skating backwards, and you're staying low. That's kind of a lot of the goalie position, is we need to keep our butt down. So in terms of movements, that was kind of how I narrowed it down for him. And he eventually, like you said, he started to click, which was awesome for us.
Very cool. I'm sure you're excited to have him back for a few more years.
He's fun to work with. He works his bag off, so it's awesome. And then this is just the other way. And with this, I kind of over exaggerated it just for the camera, but notice, and I don't love to teach pipe taps just because I think it's it creates bad habits at times, and I like to use our feet on the pipes instead of using hitting the pipes. But I over exaggerated here just because, like I said before, an attackman sees white there, and all of a sudden your stick is the first thing leading you. Your feet are going to follow. So it's kind of just being able to cut that angle off to the best of your ability off your drop step, and really try to over exaggerate it there.
Right. I like that. All right, talk us through what we're seeing here.
So this one, this is not one I do every day, but it's kind of something I like to do just more for prepping for in tight reps. So Coach Schneider over at UMass, he gave me a point that I never really thought of at the convention last year, where he was saying he doesn't really care about rebounds with his guys because rebounds mean saves. So with this one, it's kind of a combination of getting our hands punching without bringing our feet. So we're getting that muscle memory of firing our top hand. And on top of that, trying to keep the balls. I didn't do a great job on some of these, but trying to keep the ball within the crease to kind of control those rebounds the best you can. And I was working out with a teammate here, earlier in lockdown. So I was just having him rapid fire reps and try to really fire that top hand. And this is one of the first times I'd seen reps in a little bit. So really wanted to just emphasize getting that top hand going.
We're big part hole guys, right, Mike?
Yeah, it's awesome. It's great how you're showing the footwork and getting squared up to the shooter, and now you're working on your hands. And yeah, exactly. You're showing all the parts that are going to make the whole.
By the way, Krebs is an award-winning listener. He'll be listening to this and watching. I'm sure he'll have some feedback for me.
Oh, at Krebs. At him.
Let's
Krebs,
make sure we let a couple in when we play the Griffs then, if he's listening.
Yeah. Listen, first team all-back goalie. I love him. I'll pump your tires here, Krebs. All right, let's get into the game footage here. A couple clips from your Hopkins game. Is this your senior year, this game?
Yes, my senior year. Under the lights, Big Ten game. We opened up with Hopkins going into conference play, and we ended up winning this one, and biggest win in program history in quite some time. And save on Ryan Brown there to push transition. So this is one of the games where I look back on and remember most, just because it was back and forth for a bit, and then we started going on a run, and we didn't really look back, but we had a lot of fun that night.
This is a hell of a save, by the way.
Yeah,
like
seriously,
from the hash, off high.
Yeah,
that's a great
catching
save.
it and outlet. We got numbers.
Yep,
Here
and we out.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Here's another one on the run. It was cut a little tight on that highlight, but again, like from inside the hash, another good stop. Catch it. Now coming from here, another danger area on the field. That might be a little
looks like
for you right there. A little butterfly action.
Yep. A little bit.
Well, there are those drills just paying off right there, right? Getting that
Absolutely.
footwork, getting your hands to it.
Chest
I love
to
how
it.
you're catching everything. It's ridiculous. Oh.
All right, another time and rumor. Is this Ryan Brown?
Yeah. So what's funny about this one? So
The best shooter in the world.
There's a story behind this one. So you'll see my reaction after the save.
What a save! I don't know. I tried to keep the.
Okay.
There was a fist pump. I remember.
There's a huge fist pump. So what had happened here was long possession, and Pat Frazier, who I quite to this day think has the hardest shot I've ever seen, took a step down, and we were talking about kick saves before. It hit me directly in the foot. Hurt a little bit of I don't know if it was a crack or if it was pain off my cleat. I couldn't put weight on my foot, but they got the rebound and had a full possession. I'm kind of limping around in the cage for that possession and had to dial back in. And that's actually the second save off of that possession where I was able to drive off and make a save and get the ball out. So the adrenaline kicked in. You see the bench going nuts there a little bit. I think that little sequence is my favorite moment of making saves in my entire life. I was fired up.
It's awesome, man. Yeah, seriously. Well, and especially how you went from, sounds like Frazier, who shot the hardest, to arguably the best shooter in the world.
Yep, absolutely.
Yeah. John, you are an ass for cutting out the fist pumps. Just going to say that.
I know. I got all right. What do you guys think? Should we go straight up? First, you got to set the stage with the clip. Let us know, like, where this is, what's going on here.
Yeah, so I was lucky enough, and this was when I was still working in Manhattan. I got an email after work from String King, and they were, setting up a team for an all-star game of, MLL players to go over in 2017 to go play a Japanese all-star team. So it was a 10-day trip. They were covering everything, and I immediately called my boss and was like, hey, I know you said you were cool with the whole pro lacrosse thing, but this came out of nowhere. She was huge on travel. She's from Croatia herself, so she was all about it. So she gave me the green light to take some PTO and fly over to Japan for a couple weeks, or for 10 days, and got to meet a couple of the guys there, and had some friends who I already knew, but got to become good friends with the guys over there. But this was in Kyoto, Japan. Not great positioning, I'll admit. Hands were dipping a little bit, might have been baiting, but off-stick save, and for whatever reason, I decided to just go. And I remember, and I think on the audio you can hear people calling my name left and right, because I probably should have dished it. But once
But you're busy doing a walk the dog clinic here.
So once I beat this pole, I kind of had a feeling that no one was going to come. And Turf Monster got me a little bit.
Doesn't matter. How you doing?
Point to the crowd, and people were going a little nuts here. So I actually got whacked in the elbow pretty good. So I figured if I'm going to go that far, I might as well put it in the net. And anyone who's seen me ever shoot with a goalie stick, I am awful shooting with a goalie stick. I can shoot with a shorty, but I had to put it on the ground because I was hoping for the best and hoping the release point would mess him up there. So luckily that one went in, because that's a lonely jog back.
Yeah, I always feel for a goalie when they try to take it the distance and they either don't score or they drop the ball. Like that, it's tough. It's a fire drill.
Because then you're running back and you're already gassed, because that's the longest you've ran in your entire career, and you've got a full possession you got to talk through. So it's you need the sideline oxygen mask right away.
Kris, unbelievable. Love seeing the versatility. Love seeing what you guys, or what you did in your drills, kind of pop up. Obviously, I know the games were before the drills, but thought it supplemented what you showed pretty well. And like I said, you're doing an unbelievable job with your goalies up at Canisius. Maybe take the week off before we play next year. That could be good. Basically, we're both hoping for poor goalie play from both sides next year in our game. Like 18-17 would be ideal if everybody got what they wanted in this video chat. What was it? I think 2 years ago, what was it, 7-6 when we played?
Yeah, that was a tough one. That was a tough one for us.
Yeah, good day to be a goalie coach, though, that day.
Absolutely.
Both goalies played outrageous. Both goalies were unreal in that game. But I thought the video was cool. Really appreciate you bringing that clip from Japan. I mean, that was just welcome to the electric factory. But we're going to transition here and go into our outside the lines. Where we generally try to jump into topics beyond just playing the sport. Obviously, we'll be involved with playing a little bit, but just talking about being a person of color in a predominantly white sport. And kind of your experience with that. And I know Coach Slippo has a couple things teed up that he'd love to talk about too. So not really a specific question. I mean, I guess what I would say to just get the ball rolling is, how has that experience been for you and sort of like your lacrosse journey? How does that fit, just to kind of give us the beginning, and then we'll kind of tie it in as we go here a little bit.
No, for sure. And I think it was one of those things that growing up, I didn't really think much of. I grew up in a predominantly white town. I only had, up until I got to college, I had only had one other black teammate. And it was one of those things where I just kind of tried to not acknowledge it. And my mom is an absolute warrior. She came over when she was 17 from Guyana down in South America. And my dad's from Barbados, so first generation kid. So my parents really just instilled in me just the importance of being a good person. And, it's sad to say, but, the spotlight's always going to kind of be on you when you're, the one pair of dark legs on the field. So, I always tried to, make myself better. And I think part of it was that I always wanted to be, I'm a competitor, but I always wanted to be that much better because it was, it was always weird that, oh, there's a black goalie on that team. And the number of times I heard that where someone heard I played lacrosse and they're like, oh, you're a midi. And I'm like, nah, I'm a goalie. They're like, really? Like, I figured you look fast. I'm like, oh, I look fast. Okay. But I think that's, it happens. And I think a lot of the times, people might not intentionally be malicious with anything they say. But it's just things that, I've heard my whole life, like, oh, you're the whitest black kid because, I did well in school and, am a well-spoken person, or, oh, like, I'm blacker than you, I did this, or I lived in the city. And it's like, okay. I mean, at the end of the day, that's clearly not true.
Right.
But, I didn't really, growing up, I didn't really experience it all that much. It was just stories I'd heard about, my brothers as they were a little bit older. And then, my mom telling stories about how she had it tough, being coming from an English speaking place. And it wasn't crazy, back when she was growing up, in terms of being under British rule. But my uncle, was a little bit older than her, definitely had some stories where, it was weird for him, back in Guyana. So I just kind of relied on the stories they had. And then as I got older was when I had a couple of my first experiences with, race in lacrosse where, facing ignorance where, I was called the N-word after a game in a winter league game because we'd beaten a team in an indoor game in Jersey. And, the kid I made a save on late, I played pretty well, afterwards during the handshake line, it was a good game, but you're still an N. And, the funny thing about it is, I didn't even register what he had said. And then once it clicked, what did he just say to me? And I turned and one of my buddies, teed off and a little skirmish broke out. So, my guys had my back. So that was the first time that, I had ever experienced it. And, the tough part about it was my brother was at that game and he immediately came to scold me thinking that I had said something first. And, I told him what had happened and, he immediately hugged me and, told me that unfortunately that's probably not the last time that's going to happen. And, their coach ended up doing the blanket apology where, oh, well, he was mad, it was a mistake. He didn't mean it. That's not his character. But, you can talk trash in many ways, but to go for, hate speech as your first thing when you lost a winter league game,
Right.
that says a lot about that character that, it's not part of his character. So
Right.
I really do believe that, everything that's going on right now, it's so important to have these conversations just because, I think a lot of people might not have had an experience and, it happens. And to say that it doesn't is just ignorant. So I really think that's what's super important.
No, it's awesome. And a great way to start, Kris. And you speak to experiences and stories that your mother and your family members have had. I mean, do you have anything for our viewers, whether it's you personally, or again a family member or a friend that is the reality that you face every day, because you're black?
Off the top of my head, no. The only thing I can think of was I had a time in college. I was driving back from class with my roommate. And I had gotten pulled over. It was the first time I've ever been pulled over. License registration, pretty normal. And he runs everything and comes back, gives me it back and goes, hey, just so you know, your tail light's out. Like, oh, all right. Well, sorry about that. Wasn't speeding, wasn't doing anything. And when we got back to the apartment, checked, and my tail light wasn't out. There was no issue. And, I don't want to be one to assume because I'm a firm believer that, there's a lot of negativity right now on both sides where, there's good people and there's bad people. It's as simple as that. And that's going to be in any walk of life. But I'm not going to immediately assume that it was racial profiling, but part of me does think, he saw a black kid pulling out of a parking spot and, might have tried to, just get an easy, ticket or whatever it might've been. And there was nothing wrong with my car. So that was kind of weird to me. And I don't know if it's that he didn't see my passenger was a white kid. If that made a difference and, but I don't want to be one to assume and just say like, oh, that's exactly what it was. But it was a weird experience. And that was like kind of my first taste of like, wow, that was really weird. I never really had that before. And I think, just, it was more growing up of just hearing just the kind of the backhanded compliments where, people were always just, oh, you speak well, or, you're doing well in school, or anything like that, or, being in a store and kind of feeling like there's eyes on you because you picked up something that might've been a little bit expensive. And, it's things like that where, in the back of my head, you always try to think about it, but, and that's the tough part is if I don't speak, or, I've got tattoos and everything, if someone sees me and immediately thinks I'm a threat, not knowing me, that's kind of the problem. So I really think it's just so important right now to just educate ourselves, because clearly not every cop is an evil person, and clearly not every, black person or, is a thug that's looking to rob you or beat you up. So I think it's just, there's too much extremes on both sides, where there are great people on both sides, and there's also terrible people on both sides.
You're nicer than I would be, because,
Yeah.
just, that's things that people just don't understand, and don't have to deal with every day, especially, people who are, look like me, look like John, white people, to put it frankly. And it's stories like that and other stories that I've heard and been a part of that just make me realize that, like, just like your Instagram said, we all can do better. And like you said, there's people and bad people, and then there's definitely certain people in the middle. And we got to start moving those bad people towards the middle and those middle people towards the good, and I think that'll help us all grow. And I guess my next question is just like, what can we, especially in an affluent, white lacrosse culture, what can we do better, outside of, educating and listening? What do you think is some tangible things that we can do to make sure that we, grow not only in the lacrosse community, but across the greater community in the country?
Yeah. And I said it also in my post, is education is so important. And it's frustrating because, and I'll kind of segue here, but it's really frustrating because I'm seeing people that I knew growing up who, would be the first person to say what's up if they saw me in person, that are also being incredibly ignorant on social media. And I think the whataboutism is, as I call it, has been the most frustrating thing for me about all of this is, with George Floyd's, killing, how are you going to immediately eliminate the fact that he was killed on camera and then try to say, oh, well, he has priors? Or you look at other things where it's, an event happens in another city and it's, he shouldn't have been resisting. Or you see people that are like, pulling Chicago's, black people are killing black people every day. And I think that is one of the biggest problems right now, is that there's divisiveness because people are uncomfortable with being called out. And a conversation I had with Scott Bita, who's one of my best friends, coaches at Lafayette, a conversation we had, because he was our captain, and I would confidently say he's one of the best leaders I've ever been around. And it was because he wasn't leading because he had a letter on his jersey. It wasn't because, he was put in a position of power. He was a leader because he cared about the results that were given us on the field as people, and he cared about us as people. And conversation we had, and something I've been hammering away to our guys when we've had these conversations, is that, if you feel that you're being, under attack when these conversations are happening, maybe you need to look yourself in the mirror and wonder why you're immediately feeling, a gut feeling. Because, I don't want to say it's white guilt, because I don't think that's fair all the time. But if you're a person that does things the right way, treats people well, work hard at what you do, and, if someone's, struggling, it doesn't matter what they look like, you're willing to help them, you're doing your part. And I think that's the tough part, is that a lot of people right now, it's tough to say, but, the black box on Instagram, while it was a great thing, I feel like a lot of people also just check the box there, all right, well, I'm not racist. I post on Instagram, and I think, those are the same people that, if they see a homeless person, like, wouldn't, don't see them as subhuman. It's kind of, if you're a good person, it's going to show, and you just need to be able to have that empathy and love every day of your life, and just, educate yourself. Because, as a black man, like, I've learned more that I didn't even know about in the last, 6 weeks to 6 to 8 weeks, about, our culture and things that I never learned in school. And I think that's part of the problem, is that, the school curriculum is so tailored to certain parts of history that we don't really touch on other things. And, it's frustrating. And I actually have the numbers right here. Like, people who try to say, like, oh, well, you just get over it. So your family, your direct family wasn't slaves. It was 72 years ago that the military was integrated. Like, And I talked about my uncle before. When he came over from Ghana, he fought in Vietnam for the U.S. So, you know, you could go on that, and that's a story for another time. But, you know, Brown v. Board was 66 years ago. The Civil Rights Act with Jim Crow ending was 56 years ago. And Loving v. Virginia for interracial marriage was 53 years ago. My mother was alive for 2 of those. So for people to just immediately, you know, oh, well, it wasn't you, you know, oh, get over it, you know, it's not that big of a deal. It's a huge deal because this was, it's one generation away that they witnessed this.
Well, you hit it, and I got to plug our guy at Boston University, you know, Ibram Zendi. We've been fortunate enough to, you know, have him as the professor here at BU, and he wrote an awesome book, How to Be an Anti-Racist. And I think that's, you know, you touched on it. It's like, yeah, you might not be racist, but are you an anti-racist? And I think, to your point, the symbols of the black box, that everybody is checking that box. It's like, how do you take it one step further into action, into your everyday life, so that we can, you know, not make it political, but just make it how we are as people moving forward, regardless of where you are.
It's a human issue. It's not a political issue.
You hit it right there, because race is a social construct. That's as simple as it can be for generations and in generations. And it goes back to even the caste system in India. Like, there's always been a structure meant to keep, you know, certain individuals at the top. And that's the frustrating part about all of this is, you know, people try to immediately flip it and, you know, oh, well, affirmative action hires and this, that, and the other thing. And it's, you're missing the point. And that's like what hurts me the most right now is that there's just so many people that are trying to find a way to just put a knife and wedge into the problem. And I use social media as an example because it's such a big part of all of our lives. But I can't go onto Instagram or Twitter without looking at the replies and just seeing just blatant ignorance for no reason. And part of it's trolls. You know, internet trolls are going to exist. But there are people out there who truly believe this. And that's what's mind-numbing to me because, you know, if you've never seen it, sure, you know, I used this example the other day, and it's kind of crazy and wacky, but like, you know, for you to say like, oh, I've never been attacked by a bear. Obviously, you've never been attacked by a bear, but to say it doesn't happen is wrong. Like, people get attacked by bears. Like, what's crazy is I actually know someone from high school who was attacked by a grizzly bear, but that's a story for another time. But like that, like, it's a stupid example, and I use that because, you know, kind of make, you know, not make light of it, but kind of keep it loose in a tough conversation. But for you to say it doesn't happen because you haven't seen it just means you haven't experienced enough in life. And I think part of you know what makes me appreciate, you know, cultures of all types is because I've had the opportunity to travel. And, you know, tying it back to lacrosse, like I've got to go to Israel, I got to go to Japan, and those are 2 experiences I don't know if I would have had without the game of lacrosse. So, you know, it's so important to just see the world because it's really easy to just pigeonhole yourself in your own neighborhood if you haven't had the chance to see other things.
To your point, Kris, too, I think it's so important, and I feel this sometimes with my peers that I grew up with, and I grew up in a very white neighborhood on Long Island, and I see people that can't just say, like, I don't know enough. Like, they have to, like your point about, like, the whataboutisms, like, there's got to be a reason. There's got to be a defense. There's got to be a deflection. It's like, it's okay to just be like, I don't know enough. Like, not enough people are willing to say that, you know, and I think, like, I'll sit here and go, I don't know enough. I haven't experienced enough, to your point. But I'm not going to say it doesn't exist. I'm not going to say it's not out there. And the best thing I can do is engage and learn and talk and be willing to talk rather than defend. You know, and I feel like people are so, like, to your point, like, if you start to feel that in your gut, I feel like people are like overcorrecting and then like trying to make it theirs. You know what I mean? It's like when somebody passes away that you didn't really know, but there are people that act like it's their best friend all of a sudden, even though they didn't talk in 10 years. It's like, it's not that. And it doesn't need to be about you. Like, just shut up, be willing to have a conversation and be willing to learn and hear from somebody else with a different perspective. I think that's such a problem with the social media, like you said, is people want to just turn around and make it theirs when it's not their thing. Like, support and help and be an anti-racist. Like, just listen. Like, I get fired up about that because people are so like you said, they want to take it every direction. What about this? What about that? Like, no, you're sidestepping the entire issue by doing that.
Completely missing the point. And that's part of it where, you know, if you're doing things from a genuine place, like I said before, like it's going to show. And you see so many of these corporations that are coming out like, oh, we're doing everything to take a stance against racism. It's like, okay, you're also still having, migrant workers do menial work for you. Like it's gotta, you have to kind of look in the mirror there where it's, you can't pick one area and we're going to take a stance here, but we're not going to address the other problems in this bucket. So, I think it all kind of ties into each other. And, you look at the situation with the, with the football team down in Washington, and the name Redskin is inherently problematic. And I don't understand how it has taken this long to change, but like it's mind numbing to me that it ended up coming, and it's terrible to say, but it came down to the dollars and cents. And that's the reason that a decision was made. And, it's great that it was done, but it shouldn't have to come down to that.
100%. As a society, we created this. As people, we created this, and it's something that we as people can now change. And just to tie in back to what you said, John, it's like you can't be afraid to say the wrong thing, right? You can't. You got to have some courage to have the conversation and try and give your sense of where you're coming from or what you might know or don't know. But then when you say the wrong thing, you got to be able to listen, because people are just like, you're just going to educate me, Kris, if I say something wrong. And like, you got to be okay with being wrong and not defending yourself and being able to learn. Change is growth, and it's only going to happen by trying to take steps, make mistakes, and grow from it. It's the same thing in lacrosse, right? It's like we're doing all these drills and you're teaching all these steps and this and that, and people are going to do them wrong from time to time, right? And just are they willing to learn and listen from you and from others so that they can make some growth there? So,
and we had a conversation with the team recently where we kind of broke out in the groups, and I made sure that I let the guys know, like, listen, guys, pretty clear, like I'm the black guy in the room. Like, you're allowed to ask me questions. I want you to ask me these questions, because how else are you going to learn? Like, I'm the most open person. I'm an open book. Like, I want you to use me as a resource here. And one of the points that I was kind of trying to hammer away with them is, I did it as a, one of those little corny exercises, but it's like, hey, raise your hand if you've done something you regret. Every hand goes up. Raise your hand if you said something where, looking back at it, you really wish you didn't say it. You're happy it wasn't, doxed on social media. And that was all kind of sparred by, I don't know if you guys have had on Facebook with the, like, 6 years ago today, you did this. And a buddy of mine, we were having this conversation where, he had made like a homophobic comment or something on one of his posts. And he was like, I don't even think this way. Like, I'm disgusted. Like, I was 14 years old and, I said this. And he's like, that's the problem. He's like, it was just, I was too dumb and young and dumb. And like, not that that's an excuse, but like, that's not who I am as a person. And I use that as kind of as a way for our guys to understand that, like, everything you say matters and has repercussions if it's negative. So it's also just being a good person. Like, these words are naturally offensive. Like, just don't use them. It's very simple. You could call something stupid. It's universally used, and it's fine. So I think that's part of it where, being able to look at yourself in the mirror and just understand that it's not, oh, the PC police or the cancel culture. Like, it's simply just being better people, because we need to rely on one another to educate each other and make this a better place, as cliche as that sounds.
Yeah, well, let's pivot this to MLL, what you're doing, how you're finishing up, get the smiles out. Yeah, see, guys, our viewers, it's like we had the tough conversation, and it's got to continue. But tell us about what you got going on and how many saves you're going to make tomorrow and the next day and the next day, and give it to me.
Yeah, so we're all fired up. We're playing Denver Saturday night, and on ESPN Plus. So tune in. Definitely going to be a battle.
For our viewers, it's the Hammerheads, right? You're playing with the Hammerheads.
Yeah.
Okay.
Playing with the Hammerheads. So,
unreal name.
Yeah, they really killed it with that. Our marketing guy and everyone's down here right now, and we had a conversation yesterday. He was all sorts of fired up because he'd been only seeing pictures and like doing edits, and now actually seeing us in the uniforms. She's like, holy crap, this is actually for something.
Yeah.
So cool. No, the gear's sweet, and we're fired up. I kind of have the Chargers look to us a little bit. So yeah, I'm all sorts of fired up. We'll be on ESPN Plus playing Denver. It will be a good battle. 3 Rutgers guys over on the other sideline there. So pumped to get to go against them. But yeah, it's going to be awesome. Just hanging out in the hotel right now. We've got practice, training camp, but practice 2 later tonight. But yeah, I'm just ready to get going. It's getting the season cut short, which I'm sure you guys are well aware of. The competitive juices are flowing, and we're trying to pivot it into other things. So I'm just happy that I'm getting a chance to let it out and play.
And now the season runs for how long? 8 days?
Yeah. So an 8-day season, where it's every team's playing each other, and then the top 4 seeds are going to be in that playoff. So we're just looking to hit the ground running. We actually kind of lucked out with the schedule where we play Saturday against Denver, and then we've got a day off, and then we don't play again until Monday. So having that gap day where another couple teams are going, 2 or 3 days straight, I think only helps us, where we can, try to steal, too early, and that puts us kind of in the driver's seat. So we're ready to go. We've got a lot of depth where we went super D heavy. So we've got I think we have 8 defensemen, but out of those, at least 3 or 4 of them could pick up a short stick, and we've got a couple NLL guys who could play both ways midfield wise. So we're ready to just push transition, and we're just really trying to figure out how the 2 sideline box is going to work. But I think that's going to be, for the viewers, it's going to be transition left and right. So it's going to be a lot of high scoring and a lot of fun. So I'm pumped.
Give the people what they want. I love it.
Absolutely.
Yep. That's gonna be great if you're a starved lacrosse fan, like pretty much everybody is right now, because we haven't been able to recruit, and there's only been a few events and stuff like that. I can't wait for like wall-to-wall lacrosse starting tomorrow.
Yeah.
It's going to be unreal being able to watch every day the highest level of players playing. I think it's going to be sick.
And I think the cool part, and listening to the episode with Eli, it really is, and he was talking about what it's going to feel like, but being here, it really is that kind of college dorm feel, recruiting camp feel, where you're going to get a meal and you're running into a kid you played against in college, or a buddy on another team, or a kid you went to college with. Like walking around, it's funny because we're on the floor. It's split between Boston and Connecticut, and seeing those guys are I've either played against or I know. Guys are playing Xbox and whatnot. A couple I got mine with me, but a couple NHL games last night. So it's fun, just being able to hang out with each other, share some meals, and be able to kind of build that camaraderie, more organically than forcing it into a weekend. So I'm excited.
It's awesome, man. Well, you've done a great job, Kris, and we really appreciate your time. And I think this has been one of our favorite episodes. I can't speak for John. I certainly can't speak for Corey, but
yeah, I wouldn't want you to speak for me. I'll tell you that.
This has been so great, man. Thanks for bringing your full self and giving us an opportunity to learn about being in the cage, to learn about, going 70 yards and shooting high to low and getting it done, but also allowing us to learn and listen and be a part of this really important change in our community and the greater community here in the U.S.
I appreciate it. Thank you for having me, guys. This is awesome.
Awesome. Thanks, Kris.